Let's begin this speech the way Jim Rohn would, with a challenge, not a promise. Most people want to change their income before they change themselves. But that's not how the world works. You don't get paid for time. You get paid for the value you bring to that time. And that's where personal development begins, the foundation of all wealth, success, and happiness. You see, the market doesn't care who you are, where you came from, or what you believe you deserve. It responds only to one thing: value. If you want more, you must become more. That's the simple, profound truth that separates those who merely survive from those who thrive. Personal development is not a hobby, it's a responsibility. It's the soil in which every dream grows. When I first heard this idea, it hit me like lightning. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Think about that. Most people spend 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week working for someone else's dream. But maybe 1 hour, if that, working on themselves. They think progress is measured by promotions or paychecks. But real progress is internal. It's the expansion of your mind, your character, your ability to think, to act, to lead, to inspire. The problem is, we live in a world that rewards visible effort, not invisible preparation. So people underestimate the value of reading one good book, listening to one great mentor, or reflecting for 10 quiet minutes a day. They think growth is slow because they can't see it happening. But just like a tree, the roots grow before the branches. The stronger the roots, the greater the reach. Personal development is about building those roots deep into discipline, wisdom, and understanding. Jim Rohn often said, "Success is something you attract by the person you become." And that's not philosophy, it's psychology. The human mind is a magnet. It attracts what it's prepared to handle. If you attract more money, but haven't built the mindset to manage it, it will slip away. If you attract more opportunity, but haven't built the courage to seize it, it will pass you by. That's why growth must always precede gain. So how do you grow? Start small. Read something every day that challenges your thinking. Surround yourself with people who make you uncomfortable in a good way. Those who think bigger, move faster, and expect more from themselves. Keep a journal. Write down your thoughts, lessons, and goals. Study your own behavior. Observe your habits, because what you do repeatedly becomes who you are. And above all, learn to value time differently. Most people trade their time for money. The successful trade time for learning. Every hour you spend improving your mind compounds like interest. It pays dividends long after the work is done. If you spend 1 hour a day learning a new skill, by the end of the year, that's over 365 hours, 9 full work weeks of pure growth. Imagine where that could take you. But let's be honest. Personal development isn't easy. Growth means discomfort. It means realizing that you've been operating below your potential. It means facing your own excuses. And that's why most people avoid it. They want change without challenge. But challenge is the doorway to transformation. It's what turns effort into strength, and strength into confidence. Jim Rohn once shared a beautiful metaphor. He said, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." The moment you adopt that mindset, everything changes. You stop complaining about circumstances and start upgrading yourself. You stop waiting for opportunities and start creating them. You begin to understand that the world doesn't improve. It responds to your improvement. There's something deeply empowering about realizing that your future is not determined by the economy, your boss, or your background, but by your own ability to grow. It's not about luck. It's about preparation meeting opportunity. And preparation is the fruit of consistent, intentional development. So when you think about wealth, don't think in dollars, think in disciplines. Don't think in possessions, think in principles. Because if you can grow as a person, wealth will find its way to you. It's not magic, it's mathematics. Increase your value, and you increase your income. Increase your capacity, and you increase your opportunities. The external always follows the internal. Personal development is not just about becoming more successful. It's about becoming more useful. It's about adding more value to the world, solving bigger problems, and living with a deeper sense of purpose. You don't get paid for time, you get paid for bringing something of worth to that time. The question is, what are you bringing to the table each day? Growth takes patience, change takes time, but the reward is freedom. The freedom to live by design, not by default. When you invest in yourself, the returns are infinite. Your job might make you a living, but your growth will make you a life. So remember this, you can't build a skyscraper on the foundation of a shed. If you want your income, influence, and impact to rise, the groundwork must be personal development. That's where it all begins, because before you can have more, you must first become more. Most people begin their financial journey at the first level of income, making a living. It's the stage where effort and reward are directly connected, where you trade hours for dollars, and where your income stops the moment your effort stops. It's where almost everyone starts, and unfortunately, where most people remain. But Jim Rohn would remind us, there's nothing wrong with making a living unless you stop there. Making a living is honorable. It teaches discipline, structure, and responsibility. You show up, you put in the hours, you learn the ropes. You develop reliability, consistency, and the ability to follow through. These are powerful qualities, and they form the foundation for everything that comes later. But the challenge is that many people become so comfortable at this level that they forget it was only meant to be a starting point, not a destination. See, at this level, your income is determined not by your creativity or leadership, but by the clock. You're paid for what you do, not for what you know or who you become. That's why it's called making a living, and not making a fortune. You exchange time for money, a fair trade but a limited one. There are only so many hours in a day, so your potential is automatically capped. Jim Rohn once said, "Wages make you a living, but profits make you a fortune." That single statement carries a lifetime of wisdom. Wages are the reward for service. Profits are the reward for vision. And to move beyond the first level, you must start seeing beyond the paycheck. You have to start asking, what am I learning here that I can later multiply? What skills can I develop that will increase my value? What relationships am I building that can open future doors? Every job, every task, every responsibility becomes an opportunity to prepare for the next level. Instead of saying, I only earn this much, begin to say, I'm learning this much. Because what you're learning today may not pay you this week, but it can make you wealthy in the years to come. The purpose of the first level is not to stay in it. It's to use it as your training ground for the second. At this stage, most people live in survival mode. They work to cover bills, rent, food, and obligations. There's pressure, fatigue, and sometimes frustration. But within that struggle lies the seed of transformation. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who rise is mindset. Those who rise use every job as a classroom. They study success while others complain about stress. They ask better questions. They observe what works. They learn the habits of discipline, punctuality, communication, and problem solving. And those habits become the stepping stones to the next level. If you think about it, this level teaches humility. It grounds you in the reality of effort and reward. You learn the value of persistence. You learn to respect money because you've earned it the hard way. But you also learn that time is your most precious currency. And once you understand that, you begin to seek leverage. To find ways to make your time work harder for you instead of you working harder for your time. Many people get stuck here because they never make the mental shift from employee to entrepreneur. From I work for them to I work for me. Even if you have a boss, you must think like the CEO of your own life. Your job becomes your current client, your paycheck becomes your short-term investment, and your real business is you. You're building your skills, your mindset, and your future value. That's the kind of thinking that sets people apart. Rohn often said, "Don't just go to work to earn a living. Go to work to learn." The moment you adopt that philosophy, every day becomes a growth experience. You stop resenting your job and start mining it for lessons. You become intentional about your development. You ask, "What can I do better today than I did yesterday?" Because improvement is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Making a living also tests your relationship with comfort. When the paycheck is steady, it's easy to settle. But remember, comfort is the enemy of progress. The people who rise beyond the first level are the ones who refuse to become prisoners of predictability. They use stability as a foundation, not a ceiling. They invest part of their income into learning new things, books, courses, experiences that expand their capacity. They begin to create something on the side, experiment with ideas, or build relationships that open new opportunities. At this stage, it's not about quitting your job. It's about outgrowing your limits. When you reach that point, the second level begins to reveal itself. But to get there, you must use the first level wisely. Learn discipline before freedom. Learn consistency before leverage. Learn gratitude before abundance. Because if you can't handle the first level well, you'll never sustain the next one. Making a living is the first chapter of the success story, not the final one. It's where you prove to yourself that you can show up, stay committed, and build habits of excellence. But once you've done that, don't stop. Use that foundation to build something greater. Because the goal is not just to make a living, the goal is to design a life. There comes a moment in every ambitious person's journey when they realize that trading time for money will never lead to freedom. You can't work 24 hours a day. You can't multiply yourself. The clock becomes your ceiling, and no matter how hard you work, you're still limited by hours. That's when the second level of income begins to reveal itself, making a fortune. This is where the game changes. At this level, you stop working for money and start making money work for you. Jim Rohn would often say, "Profits are better than wages." Why? Because wages are paid for effort, but profits are paid for insight. Wages stop when you stop working, but profits keep flowing long after you've put in the initial effort. Profits come from thinking differently, acting differently, and seeing opportunity where others see risk. Making a fortune isn't about greed. It's about leverage, the intelligent use of systems, creativity, and value creation. It's the level where you begin to understand that success is not built on harder work, but on smarter work. You start focusing not on what you can do, but on what you can build. Instead of being paid for your presence, you're paid for your influence. This level requires a new kind of thinking. You can't climb here with the same mindset you used to survive. You have to develop what Rohn called entrepreneurial thinking, the ability to see possibilities and take calculated risks. It's about looking at the world and asking, where can I add value? Or how can I solve a problem better, faster, or more creatively than anyone else? Every great fortune begins with one simple idea that meets a human need in a new way. To reach this stage, you must start building assets, things that earn for you whether you're awake or asleep. That could be a business, an investment, intellectual property, or a system that multiplies your time. The wealthy understand that money is a seed, not a reward. They plant it, nurture it, and let it grow into something that provides fruit year after year. Think about the difference. The employee gets paid once per hour, but the entrepreneur can get paid thousands of times for one good idea. The writer gets paid every time a book sells, the investor every time dividends are paid, the business owner every time the system produces results. That's leverage, and leverage is the language of the second level. But this level isn't just about financial systems, it's also about personal systems. To make a fortune, you must build a disciplined lifestyle. You need to manage time like an asset, energy like currency, and relationships like investments. You must learn to think in decades, not days. You must master patience and persistence because wealth doesn't appear instantly. It grows quietly, then suddenly. Rohn often said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything you want. That's the formula for fortune. True wealth doesn't come from chasing money. It comes from serving others at scale. The moment you find a way to deliver value to more people with less effort, you begin to move into this second level. Whether it's a product, a service, or an idea, you're now in the business of multiplying value. Of course, not everyone makes it here. Why? Because this level requires courage. It demands that you move from security to uncertainty, from comfort to creativity. At the first level, your paycheck is predictable. At the second, nothing is guaranteed except growth. You learn through failure, you adapt, and you keep moving. But that's also what makes this stage so rewarding. You begin to realize that fortune favors the bold, not the reckless, but the prepared, the disciplined, the daring. This level is also about vision. You must be able to see beyond the moment. While others focus on this month's paycheck, you focus on the next 5 years of impact. You're no longer thinking like an employee or even like a self-employed individual. You're thinking like a creator, a builder, an architect of systems. You stop asking, how much can I earn? And start asking, how much can I create? One of the greatest lessons from Jim Rohn is that financial freedom is not the result of chance. It's the result of design. You don't stumble into wealth. You build it deliberately, step by step. You study, plan, and execute with consistency. You stay alert to opportunity but never abandon discipline. The second level of income rewards foresight, persistence, and value creation. But perhaps the most powerful thing about this stage is that it's not just about money. It's about identity. The person who makes a fortune is not the same person who only made a living. You have to grow into the kind of thinker, decision maker, and leader who can handle greater responsibility. Because the fortune is not in the income, it's in the person you become by earning it. You learn to think in terms of abundance, not limitation. You learn to create value out of ideas, not just effort. And eventually, you begin to experience a new kind of freedom, the ability to choose how you spend your time, who you work with, and what kind of impact you want to make. That's what making a fortune is really about. It's not about luxury or excess, it's about freedom. Freedom to live intentionally, to give generously, and to design a life of significance. So remember this: wages will feed your family, but profits will feed your future. The real wealth isn't just in the bank. It's in your ability to think, create, and multiply. Because when you stop working for money and start letting money work for you, that's when the fortune begins. There comes a stage in life when success is no longer defined by what you earn, but by what you contribute. It's the third level of income, making an impact. At this level, the conversation shifts from wealth to legacy, from accumulation to contribution, from self to service. It's no longer about how much you make, but about how many lives you touch. Jim Rohn often said, the greatest reward in life is not what you get, but what you become. And what you become eventually leads you to what you can give. Once you've built a living and created a fortune, the ultimate fulfillment comes from using that fortune to make a difference. Because in the end, success without significance feels empty. This level begins when you start asking new questions, not how can I make more, but how can I help more? Not how can I achieve, but how can I contribute? The mindset transforms from one of ambition to one of purpose. You start to see wealth as a tool, not a trophy. Your knowledge, experience, and influence become instruments to elevate others. Making an impact doesn't always mean creating a foundation or funding massive projects. It begins with something much simpler, influence. The words you speak, the example you set, the people you mentor, all these things ripple out far beyond your immediate reach. You never really know how far your influence can travel. A kind word, a shared lesson, or a generous act can change someone's entire direction. At this stage, you realize that the most valuable thing you can give is yourself. Your wisdom, your story, your example. You become the mentor you once wished you had. You begin to guide others not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you understand that true success is measured by how many others succeed because of you. Jim Rohn's own life was a reflection of this idea. He didn't just make a fortune, he helped millions make theirs. His legacy isn't in the money he earned, but in the minds he awakened. The ideas he shared decades ago still change lives today. That's what impact looks like when your influence outlives you. Impact requires maturity, the understanding that growth without giving is incomplete. You realize that every stage of your journey, the struggle, the failures, the victories prepared you for this. You can now turn your experience into wisdom, and your wisdom into service. It's where fulfillment becomes your new currency. This level of income, the income of influence pays differently. It rewards you not in dollars, but in gratitude, respect, and legacy. The returns are invisible at first, but they are the most powerful of all. Because when you contribute to others, you don't just help them rise, you rise with them. Making an impact also expands your sense of responsibility. When you've been blessed with knowledge, resources, or opportunities, you begin to feel a moral duty to use them wisely. You stop chasing consumption and start creating contribution. You become intentional about how your life affects others, your family, your community, and even people you'll never meet. But here's the beautiful paradox. The more you give, the more you grow. The more you share your success, the more success you attract. Because life has a strange way of rewarding generosity. Energy given always returns, often multiplied. Jim Rohn described it simply: giving starts the receiving process. When you live by that principle, life becomes richer not just materially, but spiritually and emotionally. This level is also about legacy, the footprints you leave behind. Every great life story is not about what someone possessed, but about what they passed on. Your legacy could be your teachings, your example, your values, or your compassion. It's the invisible inheritance you leave for others. A reminder that greatness isn't about standing above others, but lifting them higher. Making an impact doesn't require you to be perfect. It requires you to be authentic. People are moved not by your achievements, but by your humanity. They don't remember how much you made, they remember how you made them feel. And that's the deepest truth of all. Impact is emotional, not numerical. When you reach this level, life feels lighter. You're no longer chasing, you're creating. You're no longer trying to prove yourself, you're expressing yourself. You start to understand that wealth is a cycle. You receive, you grow, and then you give. And it's in the giving that you experience the greatest joy of all. Because one day the bank account will close, the awards will fade, and the applause will quiet. But the people whose lives you touched, they'll remember. They'll carry a piece of your influence with them, and through them, your legacy continues. That's what it means to make an impact. It's the highest level of success, to live in such a way that your presence becomes a gift and your absence a reminder of what's possible. At some point on the journey of success, a person must realize that the greatest shift they'll ever experience doesn't happen in their bank account. It happens in their mind. The distance between making a living, making a fortune, and making an impact is not measured in miles or money. It's measured in mindset. Jim Rohn used to say, "You can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight." And that direction begins with how you think. Most people live in what we might call the survival mindset. They focus on getting by, not getting ahead. Their days are filled with worry, their goals limited by fear, and their conversations rooted in scarcity. They say things like, I can't afford that, or that's not possible for someone like me. But successful people, those who climb the ladder of income and impact, think differently. They replace limitation with curiosity. Instead of saying, I can't, they ask, how can I? That single question opens the door to creativity, opportunity, and abundance. The truth is, your results are a reflection of your mindset. If you believe life is a struggle, it will be. If you believe opportunity is scarce, it will hide from you. But if you believe abundance is everywhere, you start to see possibilities that others miss. Jim Rohn said, the same wind blows on us all. It's the set of the sail that determines our destination. The wind represents circumstances, the economy, politics, the job market, all things beyond our control. The sail represents your attitude, your philosophy, your thinking. The one thing you can control. To move from survival to abundance, you have to change the way you see yourself. Many people try to improve their income without improving their identity. They want to earn more but still think like someone who earns less. You can't rise above the image you hold of yourself. If you believe you're only worth a certain amount, life will prove you right. That's why the inner work is the most important work you'll ever do. The survival mindset says, I'll believe it when I see it. The abundance mindset says, I'll see it when I believe it. The difference is faith, not blind optimism, but confidence built through discipline and growth. You start to see yourself as capable, creative, and resourceful. You stop being a victim of your past and start being an architect of your future. Abundance doesn't mean everything will be easy or perfect. It means you see potential in every challenge. When you lose a job, you see an opportunity to start something new. When you face rejection, you see feedback. When doors close, you look for windows. The person who thinks abundantly never runs out of options, because their mind is trained to look for solutions instead of problems. This shift in thinking also changes your relationship with money. People stuck in survival mode see money as a necessity, something to hold onto tightly. Those in abundance see it as a tool, something to use, invest, and multiply. They understand that money is meant to move. The more value you circulate, the more returns you create. Scarcity says, there's not enough to go around. Abundance says, there's enough for everyone if I create more value. But this mindset shift isn't just about money. It's about your entire philosophy of life. Scarcity makes you protective. Abundance makes you creative. Scarcity breeds jealousy. Abundance breeds generosity. Scarcity compares. Abundance collaborates. One closes the mind, the other expands it. The moment you start thinking abundantly, you stop competing with others and start creating with them. Jim Rohn often emphasized the importance of gratitude as the foundation of abundance. He said, learn to be happy with what you have while you pursue what you want. Gratitude aligns your focus. It reminds you that you already possess more than enough to begin. You can't build from a place of resentment. You build from appreciation. The more grateful you are, the more good you notice, and the more good you attract. Another part of this shift involves how you view failure. In the survival mindset, failure is final, a reason to stop trying. In the abundance mindset, failure is feedback, a teacher. Every setback becomes a stepping stone. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what is this teaching me? That question transforms pain into progress. And perhaps most importantly, the abundance mindset changes how you view others. Instead of seeing success as a competition, you see it as a collaboration. You celebrate others' achievements because you understand that their success doesn't diminish yours. It expands the possibilities for everyone. In an abundant world, someone else's light doesn't dim yours. It helps you see more clearly. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily decision to choose growth over comfort, curiosity over fear, and creation over complaint. You reprogram your thoughts, one belief at a time. You start feeding your mind with new information, books, mentors, experiences, that stretch your imagination. Because what you feed your mind determines what your mind produces. The shift from survival to abundance is subtle, but powerful. It begins internally, but its effects ripple outward into your relationships, your career, your finances, and your peace of mind. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You no longer wait for life to happen. You shape it. And when you finally begin to see the world through this new lens, everything changes. You realize that the greatest wealth is not in your possessions, but in your perspective. You understand that abundance was never something to chase. It was something to cultivate within yourself. Because once you change the way you think about what's possible begins to change for you. Because in the end, the measure of your life is not how much you earned, but how deeply you made a difference. Jim Rohn used to say, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." At first, that sounds simple, almost cliché, but if you sit with it long enough, you realize it's one of the most profound truths about success. No one rises alone. The people you associate with determine the standards you adopt, the thoughts you repeat, and the actions you normalize. If you want to reach higher levels of income, fulfillment, or purpose, you must be deliberate about who you let shape your world. Every person you spend time with is either a mirror reflecting your current self, or a window revealing your future potential. Some people remind you who you are. Others show you who you could become. And here's the hard truth. If you're surrounded by people who complain, procrastinate, or settle for average, you'll eventually do the same. Not because you're weak, but because human beings are creatures of emotional contagion. We absorb the energy, habits, and attitudes of those around us. That's why mentorship and association are not luxuries. They're necessities. Success leaves clues, and those clues are often found in conversations, observations, and the quiet habits of successful people. When you walk with people who think bigger, talk in solutions, and live with vision, your standards naturally rise. You begin to think differently, act differently, and expect differently. You start to believe that greater things are not just possible, they're *normal. Jim Rohn often said, "Find someone who has what you want and study them. Watch what they do, listen to what they say, and model their behavior." That's the essence of mentorship, compressing decades of experience into days of understanding. A good mentor doesn't just teach you how to make money. They teach you how to think, how to decide, and how to persevere. They save you years of trial and error by lending you their perspective. But mentorship isn't only about learning from the greats of the world. It's also about learning from the people right in front of you. Sometimes your mentor is a friend who holds you accountable, a colleague who challenges you, or even someone younger who sees the world differently. Wisdom isn't always about age, it's about awareness. The goal is to stay close to people who stretch your mind and strengthen your character. Of course, this also means creating distance from those who drain your energy. You can't fly with eagles while walking with pigeons. If your circle is constantly negative, unmotivated, or dismissive of growth, it's not a circle, it's a cage. Jim Rohn put it plainly, don't join an easy crowd, you won't grow. Go where the expectations are high and the pressure to perform is great. Growth thrives in challenge, not comfort. When you begin to surround yourself with better influences, something subtle but powerful happens. Your vocabulary changes. You start to talk about ideas, not people. You start discussing goals, not gossip. You replace complaints with plans, excuses with execution. That's the power of association. It elevates your entire way of being. But there's another layer to this idea. You must also become the kind of person others want to learn from. Mentorship is not a one-way street, it's a cycle. As you grow, you should reach back and help others climb. Teaching what you've learned reinforces your own wisdom and deepens your sense of purpose. When you lift others, you're reminded of how far you've come, and that perspective fuels gratitude and humility. The right associations also protect you from one of success's biggest dangers, isolation. As you rise, it's easy to become self-contained, to think you can handle everything alone. But growth requires connection. You need people who challenge your blind spots, who tell you the truth when you don't want to hear it, who remind you of your values when ambition threatens to overshadow them. A strong circle keeps you grounded, balanced, and focused. One of Jim Rohn's most powerful teachings was that personal development and association go hand in hand. You can't grow beyond the influence of your environment. If you want to change your income, your outlook, your habits, or your future, start by changing your environment. Read better books. Listen to better conversations. Seek out people who live by higher standards. Because if you spend enough time with those who live abundantly, you'll begin to think abundantly too. Remember, proximity is power. You don't need to have dinner with billionaires or attend exclusive events to access wisdom. We live in an age where you can learn from the world's greatest minds through books, podcasts, videos, and communities. You can surround yourself with brilliance even if it's virtual. The key is intention. Choose your influences the way you'd choose your diet. What you consume mentally determines your level of vitality in life. Eventually, you'll notice a shift. You'll start talking like your mentors. You'll start thinking like achievers. You'll start expecting more of yourself because the people around you expect more of themselves. And that's when real transformation begins, not just in your career, but in your character. The truth is, you become what you observe. If you study excellence, you'll reflect it. If you study mediocrity, you'll repeat it. Your environment is shaping you even when you're not paying attention. So be deliberate. Seek wisdom. Build a circle of accountability, growth, and inspiration. Because at the end of the day, success is not a solo performance. It's a symphony of influences, mentors, and relationships that lift you to new heights. Choose your company wisely, because your future is walking around in the people you spend time with today. Jim Rohn often reminded his audiences that success is not something you pursue. It is something you attract by the person you become. And that idea leads us to one of the most important truths about the 3 income levels of success, that the ultimate goal isn't just to earn more money, but to grow into the kind of person who deserves and can sustain that success. You see, income doesn't follow demand, it follows value. And value is a reflection of who you are becoming, not just what you are doing. When you reach the higher levels of success, money stops being the primary motivation. At the beginning, you might be chasing comfort or stability, trying to escape scarcity. But once you master that, the next level calls for something deeper: contribution. The highest level of income, the level Jim called the service level, isn't about accumulation, but about expansion. It's about multiplying your impact, not just your income. Most people misunderstand this point. They think if they just work harder, they'll automatically earn more. But that's not true. Beyond a certain point, effort alone doesn't create wealth. Effectiveness does. The key is not to do more things. It's to become a person who does meaningful things, things that serve others in ways few people can. Because the marketplace doesn't reward effort, it rewards value, and the more people you serve, the more valuable you become. Jim used to say, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." That's not a line, that's a philosophy. When you stop wishing for smaller problems and start developing greater capacity, everything shifts. Your perspective changes. Your resilience strengthens. Your influence expands. You realize success was never about chasing rewards. It was about building yourself into someone who naturally attracts them. Think about it. The person you are today has created the results you have today. If you want something greater tomorrow, you must grow into the kind of person capable of producing it. That means investing in your skills, your mindset, your discipline, and your integrity. These are not just motivational words, they are practical economics. The marketplace responds to excellence, and excellence is the fruit of consistent self-development. And the deeper part of that truth is this: personal growth transforms how you see the world. It refines your judgment, your patience, and your empathy. You begin to understand people better, what drives them, what inspires them, what they fear. And because you understand people, you can serve them better. That's where the real wealth lies, not in manipulating, but in understanding. At the highest level, success is not about competition, but contribution. When you operate with the intention to serve, to improve lives, to share ideas, to elevate standards, money becomes a natural byproduct. It's the reward for the value you've created. You no longer need to chase opportunities. They start finding you. But there's another truth hidden in this. The more successful you become, the more responsibility you carry. Wealth amplifies who you already are. If you're disciplined, generous, and wise, money magnifies those traits. If you're careless, selfish, or short-sighted, money magnifies those too. That's why character is the foundation of sustainable success. Without integrity, wealth becomes temporary. Without humility, growth becomes impossible. Jim Rohn once said, if you want to have more, you must first become more. And that's the secret that separates the truly successful from the temporarily wealthy. One focuses on external gain, the other focuses on internal growth. One counts dollars, the other builds character. And when you build character, the dollars tend to follow anyway. Now, this isn't to say money isn't important. It is. It's essential. But it's a tool, not the destination. Money gives you options to build, to give, to travel, to learn, to live with freedom. But it can't buy wisdom, respect, or peace of mind. Those are earned through the ongoing process of becoming. So, if you really want to reach the highest income level, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually, make your focus personal evolution. Study success, but also study yourself. Reflect on your habits, your routines, your thinking patterns. Ask yourself, am I becoming the kind of person my goals require me to be? Because if you're not, the answer isn't to chase more money. It's to build more you. At this stage, the game of life changes. You stop competing with others and start competing with your potential. You measure progress not by how much you've earned, but by how much you've grown. You look at challenges as invitations, not obstacles. You begin to appreciate discipline, delay gratification, and value the quiet moments of reflection, because that's where transformation happens. And eventually, something beautiful occurs. The same person who once chased success now lives in harmony with it. You attract opportunities, relationships, and results that mirror your character. You don't need to force them. They flow naturally because your inner world is aligned with your outer goals. That's the final and most profound lesson Jim Rohn ever taught. Success is not an achievement. It's a reflection. It's the shadow cast by the person you have become. When you grow yourself, you grow your life. When you refine your character, you multiply your income. When you expand your service, you elevate your significance. So the journey to the highest level of success is really a journey inward. It's not about what you get. It's about who you become in the process. Because in the end, the greatest wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in your becoming.